Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Emily Sophia, aka Mighty Sophia, here to break down for you guys the latest episode of Bates Motel. We are on season 5, episode 4, Hidden. So, spoiler alert before I dive into the mad thick of things, as I shall be bearing all in this review. I'm so sorry the video is up late. It is really tricky sometimes to record a review at like 11 p.m. at the earliest, so I decided to sleep on this one, and now we can dive into the mad thick of things. And I believe that this episode actually marks Max Theriot's directorial debut, so I'd be curious to know your thoughts as to how he did. And I personally think he did a real bang-up job, you know, especially for your pilot voyage behind the camera. And he certainly got to work with some fun material as things between Norman and Madeline reached a head, and his relationship with Mother is getting called into question, and the implications are sure to be disastrous. It also looks like Marion Crane is finally going to be showing up in town next week. We got to glimpse a little bit of Rihanna in the sneak preview. We also see that Norman appears to be seeking help, possibly, because he realizes that he's really not as in control as he'd like to be. And Norman himself would like to find a way out of the dark misdeeds in which Mother is constantly incriminating him. But some things are not to be. So I'm going to walk you through all the major events of the night and intertwine my analyses throughout. So let's get into this. So we start off, and Norman thinks it's best that the local sheriff be informed of the lethal accident, but Mother and Chick beg to differ. There's too much at stake here, not to mention the rather unseemly secrets in the basement. So there's no sense in flagging down the authorities when this ain't their first rodeo. As much as Norman, the golden-hearted lad with a black streak, would like every preceding rodeo to be the last. So Mother insists that Norman go ahead and help Chick dispose of the body, and it'll all be good, and outnumbered, he has no choice but to begrudgingly concede. Now, Romero, meanwhile, he begs that farm kid for help, tries to tug on the sympathy strings, and asks him to get some medical supplies. And after the kid does acquiesce, Romero makes a break for it and steals off into the woods. You can almost hear the chorus of Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba playing in the background. You know, he gets knocked down, but he gets up again. Revenge is a hell of a performance-enhancing drug, evidently. So anyways, Chick gives Caleb a very ornate funeral. It's quite a send-off for this son of a bitch. He's wrapped in a white sheet and placed on a bed of branches atop a canoe. It's the whole funeral pyre treatment, which Chick ceremoniously lights on fire as if ferrying a fallen warrior to the great beyond. Surely that won't draw so much as a sliver of scrutiny, right? I mean, death's, well, it's a natural part of life, you know? And clearly, it seems to me that Chick is really committed to his craft as a novelist. I mean, for what other reason would he give this bastard such a poetic requiem? You may as well throw in a Viking funeral for good measure at this point, but yeah, life imitates art, imitates life, or something like that. But then again, Chick does have a knack for finding beauty in the unlikeliest of situations, and I would say that death is no exception. So there's a lot of different ways you can read his actions, and I think that is part of what makes this final season so deliciously fun. But yeah, so we also get acquainted with Brooke Smith's sheriff, Jane Green. Now, if you don't know, Brooke Smith actually played the daughter of the senator who is in the pit in Silence of the Lambs, so that's a fun little detail. So in the meantime, we go back to the Bates estate, and Mother asks Norman what the hell crawled into his pants as he packs away a bunch of her old dresses. He's irked, I think, about getting embroiled further in the body dumping business. This is not his idea of a happily ever after by any stretch. I mean, couldn't they have spent a little more time fleshing out the paradise clause of their beyond the grave contract? So the two argue about Chick and then Mother's fashion choices. She'll go order new clothes if she has to. I mean, arguably from the same site where she's learning French or something like that. You know, but yeah, she's got to get new duds unless she run around naked. And she challenges Norman, you know, make up your mind. Do I like the clothes or do I not like the clothes? So we can see that Norman's fantasy is beginning to fray at the edges in a serious way. Mother is amused and undaunted by what she essentially treats like these tantrums, the indecisiveness of the fickle mind that's actually sustaining her. Her behavior suggests that Norman feels ashamed and insecure. Ridding himself of Mother's dresses shows the inner turmoil, because in one sense, it's as if he wants to dissuade his unruly guardian angel from possessing him by precluding any opportunities for uninvited dress-up, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, you part with the cursed digs and keep your pants on. But, yeah, so it seems that Mother threatens to retaliate to the wardrobe purge by disrobing entirely. I think that this is a veiled threat that is delivered in the whole dead or not, I can't be prancing around naked line. This taunt doubles as a dig at his sexual attraction to her and also as a sign of his helplessness to keep Mother's misdeeds at bay. And there's so much to unpack here, but Norman instead opts to pack up and clean his mother-loving conscience with a bit of defiant catharsis. Unfortunately, the act of rebellion packaged as charity sparks a lively game of pin the hand-me-downs on the dead girl, as Norman can't help but Norma-wise, get it, Norma-wise, Madeline even further by bequeathing to her the fate-sealing dresses that, like death itself, absolutely become her. So meanwhile, Sheriff Green pays Norman a visit about Jim Blackwell, guy was skipping parole, released from the same prison that Alex Romero was staying at, and now he's escaped. Oh, that's good, right? So yeah, just FYI, Jim Blackwell is the would-be assassin whom Mother's knife fell a-kissing a few episodes back. And yeah, so Norman and her make conversation, and he says, oh, there's nothing in this house that I don't know about, when the sheriff insinuates that maybe there's something in the house that this dude wanted. Green plays things really cool, while Norman is anything but, as is his style. And then Norman tells Mother about Blackwell, but not Romero. It seems that he wants to get his own revenge without Mother's interference. And he lashes out, bemoaning the fact that he isn't included in the big decision-making processes, but Mother is not content to sit back and ride out his blackouts. So he still has the box of Norma's dresses in hand as he's airing his grievances, and Mother tries and fails to placate him as he announces that he's heading out for a few hours, as he is wont to do. So Norman goes to donate some of Norma's old belongings at a local church, and he lingers on one of her quintessential polka dot dresses before dumping them in the drop box. And the next thing we know, we hear this old-timey jazz music start to play, and then he drifts into Madeline's hardware store where he has to pick up none other than new shower curtains. So that's a fun little reference there. And he decides to give Madeline Norma's old gowns. You know, it's like, here's what you're going to be wearing to your funeral. I hope you like it. Yeah, and then he actually quips, like, I'm offering you my dead mother's clothes. I must be going mad. Ha 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 ha. It's part of the camp that I love about this show. But she shouldn't worry, because Norma was beautiful and vibrant, not some stuffy old matron. So yeah, and if you just take everything as a compliment, and you'll get by just fine. That seems to be Madeline's personal take on situations. So Norman then watches Madeline as she takes care of one of her baby-toting customers and looks on with stars and hearts in his eyes. But then when he returns home, we see that Chick is ready to settle back in at the Bates Manor with a whole host of feathered friends in tow, some to cook and some to immortalize in Norman's morbid workshop, ostensibly. But Norman stops him dead in his tracks and vocalizes his desire to restrict Chick's access to the house and to his peculiar, novel-worthy living arrangement with Mother. And he says it's too much with Mother and all, but Chick tries to keep his foot firmly lodged in that door, lest Norman kill off all of his ambitions and even his good intentions too with one stone. Norman appreciates Chick's offer of help, but can't stick around any longer. Now the question is he trying to protect Chick from future violent goings on? Or is he frustrated that Chick sided with Mother in the dispute over what to do about Caleb? Trying to reclaim his own agency by keeping both Chick and Mother out of his affairs? Whichever way, Chick and his entourage of chickens and quails and assorted fowl have to fly the coop. And Chick is more than a little miffed at Norman's revocation of shelter, employment, friendship, all that good jazz. Enough to the point where we almost fear him exacting some form of retribution for this affront to his loyalty and generosity. But it is Chick that we're dealing with here. I have to say that time and time again. Norman's dismissal of him is itself a complex action that demands an equally complex response. So what's Chick's next move, And I think there are many ways to explain the pushback against Chick's tendency at chez Bates. From my perspective, Norman is vying for some kind of normalcy, and his subconscious quarrel with Mother is both compelling him to push Chick away because he's one source of enmity between himself and his soulmate, and he's resurrecting Norma in the form of the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed shopkeeper who is all too willing to normalize Norman's longing for a woman of his mother's make and model. So meanwhile, Romero calls in a fake overdose at a local motel, and he breaks into the ambulance as the emergency responders head to the room. And then he tries to perform a little bit of outpatient care on his buckshot-riddled stomach with stolen supplies. So, good times abound for Alejandro. Meanwhile, Norman goes to close up the motel for the night as Sheriff Green strolls up. She was hoping to check out the guest registry, and Norman obliges with but thinly veiled paranoia in his voice. And the performance here is so squirm-inducing, but incredibly fun, as Freddie Highmore always makes it. So anyways, Sheriff Green is still investigating the Blackwell case, and maybe he checked in under a false name, which actually made me think of Sam Loomis, and I was like, is he going to throw David Davidson under the bus? But I don't think that's the way things are headed. So Norman attempts some mind games with the sheriff, actually, when she asks about how he knew that the guy was from Canyon City. And after some stuttering, he calmly claims that she told him about his hometown during her first visit. Very, very smooth operation there. But I just love that dead look in his eyes, like, oh yeah, absolutely, that's the way it went down. Like, he stutters a lot before getting there, but he does get there. And so then the sheriff gives him some information about Blackwell's vehicle, after which Norman promptly rushes to Mother and demands to know the whereabouts of the car. And apparently Mother just hid it in the woods. And Norman harshly criticizes Mother's indiscreet evidence dumping tactics. And they steal off into the woods in the dead of night, and Mother maintains still that she took care of things and everything is all good. And Norman clearly believes otherwise and actually goes so far as to accuse Mother of wanting them to get caught and sabotaging everything. She mocks him mercilessly and starts making her presence known to the world, much to Norman's horror. She's screaming out like, that's why I've protected your ass 24/7 so we could get caught. And then she starts shouting out like, I'm still alive, I faked my suicide, and all this stuff. And Norman is absolutely not having it. So he actually tackles her to the ground and nearly asphyxiates her. And then that's when he sees Norma's lifeless form against the soil until she springs back to life and calmly asks about what's really going on between them. And that's when we kind of traipse even further into horror movie territory. She tells him never to do that again. And then Norman at that point decides to let the whole thing go for now, too startled by the violence in his mind and the near loss of his sole companion at this point. And from this altercation, we can see that Norman's defenses are caving. He's distracted and on edge, dismayed at his lack of of agency as the bodies drop all around him, and he feels like he gets no say and there's no way for him to even stop this. And Mother may take control and claim to do so in his best interest, but she doesn't take his side, at least from his perspective. So he seems to distrust her motives as they are increasingly falling out of line with his own, tragically enough. For Mother being this self-defense mechanism, she's really starting to tear him apart from the inside. So Mother wakes up Norman, whoops, Freudian slip. Norman wakes up the next day with Mother at his side. Gosh freaking dang it. And the phone rings. He answers, whispering so as to avoid disturbing his dead dulcet darling. And it's Madeline on the other side of the line, and she's getting serious vibes from Norma's dresses. And she invites him over for dinner in yet another of Sam's absences. She says she needs a puppy, but I guess a visit from Norman will have to suffice. Fill that role in her life. She really should have checked her scale before weighing those options, but the poor girl hasn't a thread of common sense in her toolkit. Madeline's practically skipping to her grave, not so much like a sheep to the slaughter as a fuzzy little rabbit leaping all the way to a carrot convention. I don't freaking know. But anyways, so we see Norman pay Chick a visit at his snazzy junkyard abode, and Chick nevertheless asks him to wipe his feet before entering the ramshackle RV. Once again, I'm reminded of why it is impossible not to take a shine to this guy. He is this Lynchian medley of unflappable and classy and offbeat, and you just can't get enough of it, truly. So Chick tells Norman about the suspense novel he's working on, as Norman casually asks him how to hotwire and get rid of a car, as would any pal seeking some checkered counsel. Chick says that he knows a guy with a place and a thing, but in exchange for his help, he wants the scoop on what it is that Norman did. It's a little bit of quid pro quo action. Another Silence of the Lambs reference, if you shall. Norman explains that Mother is out of control and she's going to ruin them if he can't rein her in somehow. He then tries to show Chick some genuine gratitude. He's spiraling, to be sure, and it seems that he needs a friendly face to cling to as his relationship with Mother fluctuates, like he talks about with Madeline later at the dinner scene. So as he fights to regain control of himself, he believes that Mother has had too much of her own way without enough of his input. He's a bicycle built for one and carrying two, a pair whose compass points to hell time and time again. So Mother's solutions strike him as short-sighted and dangerous, and now that he's ascribing even more of Norma's qualities to her flesh and blood chimera, Madeline, it's easier to see Mother's shortcomings. As best he can tell, Mother is putting them both in harm's way. And she's such a defined individual, such a faithful recapitulation of the strong-willed Norma Bates, that he can't envision the possibility of sacrificing her existence. He can only stand up to her and hope for the best. And deep down, we know that he knows otherwise, but denying Mother and erasing her completely and taking up his own cross is, to him, a choiceless choice, I think. So Norman finds Mother. I keep switching this. She's reading on the couch before he heads out for the evening, and he tells her that, that's garage door. He's going to Madeline's for dinner. He doesn't want her opinion. To which Mother says, you have free will and so do I. You do what you're gonna do, I'll do what I'm gonna do. Fair is fair. And then she says that she promises to always protect him, and that is the area in which she does not have a choice. But Norman retorts that she needs to accept him as being in charge of his own life, and that he doesn't like the turns that their arrangement has taken since losing Norma and getting Mother back. And I wonder when the next time he's going to visit the cold storage throne room, if you will. I wonder when that is going to be. But yeah, so Norman takes off, and, boys will be boys, but some boys will be mothers. So when Norman arrives at Madeline's house, she's wearing Norma's dress like it's second skin. So she is matching Norman's creepiness blow for blow. It's clear that the two are really made for each other, perhaps. And it's that pretty blue floral number, of course, fits perfectly. So the two of them settle in and chat about their respective life and times over a lovely dinner. And yeah, the kind that Madeline can never justify preparing because her husband is always gone. So talk veers into more serious territory as matters of the heart take center stage. They talk about her relationship with Sam, and Norman says that relationships shift constantly. And this is the crux of the matter, okay? It's hard to know what's real any moment unless it's right in front of you and you're experiencing it. That's what he says. And at day's end, you know, Mother is intangible. She's a memory far more elaborate than most, but her illusion, which is jeopardized by Norman's self-doubt, pales in comparison at this point to the physicality of Madeline, especially as she is so completely and utterly embodying the Norma that he knew and loved, and which he has tried to capture in his mind. And so Madeline feels how uncomfortable the situation is, and she decides to ask if they want to make a cake, and then they can watch a movie and eat the cake. And I say, careful, Norman, because you can't have your cake and eat it too. And that rings very, very true for this situation, as we soon see. So, yeah, meanwhile, Romero shows up at the home of a woman named Maggie, who I'm pretty sure has appeared on the show before. And, whoops, I am messing things up here in my notes. But then we go back to Madeline's, and the happy knot couple drink wine and bake their little disaster cake. And I say, is it safe to prepare baked goods with that much raw sexual tension in the vicinity? That can't be good. But there is no food safety manual or cookbook in sight as the two go in for a little bit of sugar. But then Mother arrives in time for her just desserts. But apparently it's all in Norman's mind. Now that is a twist. So Norman runs home, but he can't find Mother. There are yet again a couple of ways to look at this. One way or the other, the nature of the game has fundamentally changed for Norman and Mother. My initial thought was that this is crazy. This is a stupid crazy, and none of the reviews that I read even talked about this. But I thought that he only thought that he escaped and left Madeline unscathed, because that's how I was reading into Mother's disappearance from home. I thought that he was actually fantasizing about saving Madeline from Mother, but without realizing that he's helpless to override Mother's prime directive. I mean, she is, after all, what he made her to be. She's the watchdog of their unholy union and his protector in times of transgression and trouble. And what's more troubling than a passionate dalliance with the reincarnation of your dead mother after dabbling in some cake batter foreplay? I'm just saying, I can hardly think of few scenarios more impossible for Mother to pass up. But most of the reviews that I've read looked at the situation differently, and I'm pretty sure we're just meant to believe that Madeline is alive, no thanks to a neck-slitting vision of Mother, and that Norman has betrayed his love and shattered his paradise. I think that that is ultimately what we are to glean from that climactic ending, and that final shot is deeply unsettling. I think that that is another adjective that I use in every single one of these reviews, but the shoe fits. You're gonna wear it. So that is my nitty-gritty breakdown of the episode. I would love to hear your thoughts on everything and anything. If you agree with anything I said, if you take issue with it, I have been having such a good time with this season so far. Really excited to see the turns that things take in the future, and I really want to see things get ramped up between Norman and Mother in the days to come. So let me know any and all of your thoughts. I am eager to hear them. If I missed anything, break it on down in the comments below, okay? So you guys take care of yourselves pretty please. And as always, I will be back before you know it.